Sybil. Hello, Drown. Hi, baby. Good boy. There you go. Sybil. That's a good girl. Come for a pet. Good girl.
Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here. My guest today is from Canada, Samantha Myhre. Hi, Samantha.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to my channel.
Thank you.
So you have two different businesses, and I want to start with RavensWood Fibre Company. So you living on a farm and you have Icelandic and Shetland sheep there?
I do. Yes, I live in New Brunswick, and I have actually been in the Maritime provinces now for almost exactly seven years. I traveled from out west, and it was a dream come true to be able to actually raise the animals that produce the fiber that I have come to love and worked with since I was a little girl.
Well, I'm always fascinated with people who actually raise animals, right? Not just knitters, but people who go from animal to fiber. Was that like a learning curve for you, like to learn about animals, the breeds of
Oh my gosh, yes, yes. My husband and I had quite the discussion, and we chuckle about it. And every once in a while, he reminds me that all he ever wanted was a dog. And we have 3 of them now, which is probably too many at times. But I have always been someone who likes to learn from the beginning. What is it that I've been buying wool, I've been dyeing wool even at that point, and doing all these things since I was a little girl. And I was like curious about the animal itself. And actually getting sheep happened in the craziest way you can ever imagine. When I moved to the Maritimes, I thought I wanted to be a farmer as well as a hand dyer. And all I wanted was chicken and goats. And we did get chickens, and darn near got divorced, but we got chickens after we built a coop together. And then I started to see other individuals who had goats. There's a lot of people around here with goats, and realized that, oh my goodness, those are crazy animals, that they're escape artists and they're troubles and they're jokesters. And I said, no goats. There's no way I'm getting goats. And we went to a beer festival, an outdoor beer festival. I don't drink beer, by the way, but we went to this tasting and walked up to this one table who happened to make mead. And this man was holding this tiny, maybe 3-pound baby lamb. And I gotta have it, touch it. I needed, oh my goodness. And I fell in love at that moment. And the next year, it took us a year to research everything about Icelandic sheep at that point, and to build a barn and get ready to bring 5 babies home our first year. And David, I remember him reading books and books and books and asking questions. He's a paramedic by his profession. And he was researching, and he said, look at all the things that can go wrong. I said, good grief. We had children. If we had known all the things that could go wrong, we wouldn't have had them either. But they grew up and they were okay. We'll figure it out.
And why Icelandic? Why like what was about that specific breed that attracted you to start with?
So what attracted us was, first of all, sheep have become so domesticated and production-wise, whether that be for fiber or meat, typically, or even for dairy products, that they have become quite, I'm going to say docile is the word that I'm going to use. And they tend to have a lack of thrive when they're born, if they get ill. But the Icelandics are almost the same breed that they were 1,000 years ago. And they're known for their fiber, they're known for dairy, and they're known for meat. They thrive on almost nothing as far as the quality of grains and grasses that you feed them. And that was good for us because we've never had sheep before. We've never had farm animals to that extent. And so we needed something that was going to be simple. What we didn't realize is that thrive means that they're little bulldog sheep. They do not behave like a typical sheep.
Well, how did it progress from those 5 babies to where you are now?
Well, let's see, that would have been spring 2018, I believe, is when we brought those home. So we started off with one little ram. He was 2 weeks old and he was a bottle baby. His mama had rejected him, which I thought was wonderful. It meant that I got to be a mama to this little guy. And within 2 weeks, we had discovered he thought he was more of a dog than a sheep. And we knew we had to bring another sheep home. So that was Guinness. We brought home Tara, who was also 2 weeks old, 3 weeks old at that time, sorry. So they were the same age, and we bottle fed 2 of them, had ordered 2 more girls from another farm, and then decided 1 more. So I tell you that story, those original 5 were Terra, the earth, Nova, the stars, Sola, the sun, and Luna, the moon. And then we had Guinness, the beer. So David's life was full. And so that first year we had those lambs, and then we went into our first lambing season the next year because they also grow up very quickly, which is nice for that. And we fell in love with them. They just made our world. So that next year we ended up with 4 baby lambs, of which we still have 1. And we're now coming up to our 5th lambing season. And since then have introduced the Shetlands to our flock. And that's part of the reason how we moved from Nova Scotia to New Brunswick this spring. David retired, and RavensWood has blessed us with enough income that the 2 of us can both work from home now. And we decided the sheep were what we wanted, and the tiny little farm that we had created in Nova Scotia was just not big enough anymore. So we sold our property there and moved to a larger property here in New Brunswick. We now have 8 acres and a huge, beautiful barn. And we have spent this summer getting ready for winter with our flock. And we're in mating season again right now. So we're getting ready for next lambing season next spring.
Right. Well, what do you think your sheep taught you?
Oh, goodness. Where do I begin? I am stronger than I thought I was. I think that's the biggest gift they have given us. And in particular, when it has come to medical issues or lambing, that I have done things I never, ever in my lifetime would have thought I was capable of doing, including helping give birth to a lamb when that's been a complicated birth. And we've been blessed in that David and I have been witness to every lamb that has been born on our farm. And we've had a few complicated births that we've had to deal with, and we're a well-heeled team that way. And the second thing I'm going to say is trust, that it is so important to gain the trust of our animals so that when we do need to help them for whatever reason, that they come to us rather than run away from us.
Right. Tell me about the Ravenswood. Like, how did that start? Like, why did you decide to go into yarn dyeing?
So the Ravenswood story actually starts a long time ago, almost 14 years ago. I was living in Alberta at that time in a different relationship. And I was lucky enough to be a part of a group of women who were a teaching guild, the Sheep Creek Weavers, if any of them are listening. And this teaching guild was so encouraging. The group of women shared their skills with no hesitation. And I happen to be someone who loves color, has always, I've always been crafty, let's call it that way. And it was a group of women who said to me, Sam, you need to sell your wool. You're having fun with it, but you need to sell it. It's starting to get carried away. How much is ending up? I have a lifetime of stash. And I thought, oh, I'm not good enough. And, but I did. I started an Etsy shop. I hit go, and within minutes, my first skein sold, and I couldn't believe it. I was so excited for that. And then life happened. As I said, a different relationship broke down, and I met a wonderful man who I'm married to now, who stole me away from out west and brought me to the beautiful Maritimes. And a different group of girlfriends said to me, Sam, you need to sell your yarn again. And this was my do-over. It was me being able to do what I wanted to do rather than what I had to do. And so Ravenswood started in 2017. And it was the same thing again. I said to the ladies, but I have to be able to pay my mortgage. I can't pay my mortgage selling wool. And they said, yeah, you can. You know you can. Hit go. And it worked. It worked.
Well, what fascinates me about you that you didn't stop there. You didn't just push with your own success. You decided to share the knowledge of how to start the business and how to continue with the business and make it a success. And now you're doing consulting companies.
Yes, I have a mentorship.
That idea.
Yeah, and where that stems from is because, as wonderful as it is to have those women push you and say, push go, you can do this. The difference between being able to have a hobby that you sell product and make a living selling product is huge. There is such a difference between those two positions. And I'm going to tell you, in the beginning, when I started in Alberta, at the end of the day, it truly was a hobby. I worked hard. I had another full-time job and I had sales. But at the end of the year, when I did all my costing and put my tax form in, realized that, in fact, I had made no money. I had a lot of fun, but I made no money. And so coming here and making the decision to make this my primary business and means of helping support our family, I wanted to reach out and ask questions like, how do I do this? How do I make sure I have the right pricing? How do I make sure that I navigate this social media craziness that's out there? How do I know where to go and not make mistakes that I have made before? And really, those resources aren't out there. We have this tendency, I think, of holding our secrets when we are successful. And it's like, look, I worked really hard to get here, and you're just going to have to figure it out, and by luck or by golly. And I thought, no, I don't want to be that way. I want to share with other people, not just women, but other people, that you can be successful, and there is enough out there for all of us. There really is.
I want to dig into it a little bit.
Okay.
Let's pretend that you're giving me, so you're offering 1 hour free consultation, right?
Yes.
To your new clients. Let's pretend it's part of this consultation, because I meet so many crafters who are like really talented people, and they having hard time pricing their merchandise, and they saying, well, I know that I would never go and buy a beanie for $120. I cannot imagine putting that price tag on it, but this is what it should cost. How do
Right.
you tell those people that, like, no, it's like you have to stand by your price, especially considering how global the market nowadays?
Absolutely. So let's start with defining, and without being critical of either spot, because there is a place for everybody's yarn and everybody's pricing. We're gonna talk about it being yarn specifically. You have dollar store and you have boutique. If you shop at the dollar store, and I'm calling that dollar store general, not specifically the store called the dollar store, but the cheap, less expensive wools that we all know are available out there. When we walk in, the first thing we don't understand is the quality of that. We don't understand that, yes, the price is cheaper, but it's maybe a smaller skein than what we are specifically looking for. So we're going to have to buy a little bit more. And when you walk around and you say, can you help me find? Chances are someone's going to say that's down aisle 4. There's not a lot of service there. For a lot of knitters, crocheters, that's okay. They're comfortable with that, and they're okay because it's not a large investment and they can walk away. Boutique. Boutique is totally different. You walk in and you feel the warmth when you walk into that environment. You have somebody at the counter who says, how can I help you? And whether it be, I just need a minute to look around. Sure, no problem. Or, you know what? I have this pattern and I'm not quite sure what I need to do. That individual comes with knowledge. That knowledge is also a part of what you're costing into your product. Right? The second part is, what are we worth? What is our value? If I was working a regular job, if I'm going to work, and let's use Wendy's, a coffee shop, whatever it is, if I walk in there, I make minimum wage. Hopefully I make some tips along the way. And then I go home and I look after my family. That's the minimum. When you are producing a product that is beautiful and you put time and effort and consideration and the extra value with your knowledge and your eagerness to help individuals, why would you accept anything less than minimum value? So when you're standing at that table at the market, somebody's going to walk up to you and they're going to say, of course, I'm going to spend $33 for a skein of yarn. It's a beautiful piece of yarn. I can afford this. I happen to have the income for it. Or I've saved up to buy that special skein of yarn because it is special. Normally I have to do dollar store, but I want something really, really special this time. It's a gift for someone. Or the other person will say, that's a lot of money. How dare you charge that amount of money? And as much as it's gut-wrenching at that point, you need to understand that's not your customer. There is your customer out there, the first person who came to you, or the first 3 people who came to you and see value in what you're selling. And that's the key. You've got to give the value for what it is that you're selling. You need to price it as much.
Do you find that, like, when you have customers that you consult as to how to start business and how to make it turn it successful, do you find that the dynamic changes, like, from start to midpoint? Because I notice, like, a lot of crafters or a lot of creators in general, right? We can be very enthusiastic at the beginning. Let's say you're starting a YouTube channel. You have an idea of what you want to share with your audience. you get the equipment set up, you film yourself, you pour your soul into that, you figure out how to upload it, and then crickets, right? Like you thought that you're going to have 1,000 subscribers and you're going to get 1,000 views and you're going to monetize on YouTube, and nothing's happening. You get to the point where you monetize and you understand that they're paying you less than penny per view, so it's like, doesn't matter how successful your channel, it's much less than you can make at Wendy's with minimal wage, right? So how do you find that enthusiasm to continue when we're all feeling down? How do you find that like inner strength not to doubt yourself and just to tell yourself that like this is just part of the journey and you have to stick with it?
Well, I'm gonna personalize that first of all, because I can tell you there are days when I've kicked the bucket literally and said, what the heck am I doing here? And sat on the stairs at the top of the studio, because my studio's in the basement now, thinking, what am I doing? Why am I here? I can't get it right today. There is nothing new in my head. How can I possibly be new? My followers haven't increased for the last month. Most of it's a lie. They have, if I come back. I think, honestly, that is the difference between a true entrepreneur and an individual who is creating a hobby that they enjoy, and then they move on to something else. A true entrepreneur understands that, you know what, it's crap today. It's not working. I've made 3 mistakes and I just need to walk away for a few minutes. But then you get up tomorrow morning and you think, hey, you know what? I know how to fix that. I can do that. I know who to call. I know who to reach out for that resource. I know which YouTube I've got to find in order to give me that extra inspiration. And you build that team around you, which is a part of the mentorship that I encourage while I'm mentoring. And that team of individuals isn't necessarily always professional. Sometimes it's your husband kicking you in the butt saying, so what else are you going to do? You got some other crazy idea? And me telling him all the reasons why. No, I love what I do. Well, then get down there and get it done. And the entrepreneur in me gets up and does it again. And the success is when someone writes that email or leaves that comment that says, wow, this is beautiful, it feeds me. That's what feeds me.
Well, is there like somebody who is the wrong client for you? Like, how do you know who is the true entrepreneur and who is just a hobbyist and who cannot be turned from one category to another?
Right. So that comes sometimes in that 1 hour free consultation. I have had interviews with individuals that we have chatted about their circumstances, even though the dream is huge and it's a great idea, the time in their life isn't quite right. And recognizing that the time isn't quite right. Babies are really small. There isn't another individual that can be a part of the team to help when the orders are coming in. Perhaps from a financial perspective, they're in a transition. They have a full-time job and they're raising babies and they want to start a business, and there's just no time for that. So we've had honest to goodness conversations with clients where I've said, potential clients, where I've said, are you sure this is what you want to do? And have you considered? And they've said, you know what, you're right, the timing isn't there. Other individuals, I have had someone that I've worked with that partway through, we realized that all the things that drive an entrepreneur, which are the failures, but yet the need to get up and try again just weren't there. And she recognized that in herself halfway through. And that was part of the mentorship process as well. Sometimes we're not meant to be the dream that we thought, or the dream changes. That's another situation where I've had an individual that was absolutely convinced what she wanted to do was to custom process fiber for individuals. And what we came around to realizing was that financially was just not going to work for her. But if she took her animal poop and made it into fertilizer, she could be a millionaire. And but that was a recognition and process in our discussions to realize sometimes it isn't what we thought we wanted to do, but in fact, it's the right choice and it meets the dream better than we ever thought it could.
Well, do you think like you're living your dream now?
No, I don't. So it's been 14 years that I've been dyeing yarn. I can't imagine not dyeing yarn. I may step back in the amount that I'm doing and trade that for being able to consult. I think I still need to have my feet in the business to stay current and relevant. And it just becomes a little more fun rather than, oh, no, let me take that back. Fun isn't the right word. There is a repetitiveness occasionally, and that creative spark that drives me isn't necessarily as strong when I'm repeating things over and over and over again. That creative isn't there. So consulting feeds my creative need better than dyeing does right now. And because consulting can add to my income in a different way, it gives me the relief in order to be creative with RavensWood again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Do you ever wake up and you talk to yourself, giving yourself advice that you give to your clients? Like, do you wake up doubting yourself and saying, you know what, it's all like none of it makes sense, and then give yourself a pep talk?
Absolutely. And do you know what happens even more is I have my sit down cry moments thinking, what the heck am I doing? And David will come back to me and he'll say, what would you tell your client? Well, I would tell him this, this, and this, and this. And he gets a goofy little grin on his face. And I'm thinking, of course. Yeah, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I know how to do this. I absolutely know how to do this. But there are times when I am tired, and especially when I'm tired. And then something wonderful happens and I see success with a client and I get to share in their successes. I got to tell you, that does everything. And don't tell anyone, but they don't even have to pay me anymore because that feeds me. Yeah, that's a good thing. When I see their excitement and their first order and their creative spark going, that feeds me.
Well, you know, you mentioned those women who first push you to dye your yarn and to sell your yarn. How do you find your community? Like, a lot of people need at home, a lot of people create at home, and they feel isolated. They feel like this is just their little thing they do for themselves. How do you find that support group, this community that's gonna help you start something?
You know, that has been a challenge, especially with the last couple of years, and we've been forced to isolate. But I think what I have seen is an increase in individuals using mediums like you and I are using right now, Zoom meetings that you can create your circle and get together. My girlfriends who still live out west and I get together probably about once a month, and we have a good knit night together. And when I moved to New Brunswick, I knew no one. My husband and I moved here and our social circles went to zero. And I said to him, I need my community. I need my girls. I have to get out there and find my girls. I don't know who they are yet, but I'm going to find them. And what I did at that time was start looking on Facebook for different groups. I actually created a Facebook page that I never finished because I sent an email to the public libraries and actually found a knitting group that had disbanded during COVID, but had just started coming together again. And the cycle has started again. There's that group. From a business perspective, I went to the markets, the farmers markets, to meet individuals. And in the past, I actually put a table up at a market. And man, if you want to attract knitters and crocheters, put yarn out on a table. You're going to find them. I read something this morning about if you're a little weird and they're a little weird, embrace their weirdness because that's your tribe. And it's the same thing. You cannot expect to find people if you're sitting at home. You need to get out there. Go sit at a coffee shop and bring your knitting out. Somebody's going to come and talk to you. And that's what happened when I met the very first knit group that I joined in Calgary out west in Alberta. I went to a coffee shop and the next week I went again. I sat at a table by myself and I remember sitting with my needles underneath the table knitting because I didn't want anybody to see me knitting. And this woman walked up and she said, "Do you have needles?" "Yeah, I have needles." And I kind of raised them up and showed her a little bit and put them back under. She said, "I have needles in my purse too. Can I sit with you?" And I said, "Yeah, you can sit with me." And 45 women were in that group when I left.
What's social media to you? Like, how do you treat it? Is that a place to grow your business, place to find new customers, place to find friends?
So social media is an interesting place, as well as starting from a business perspective or from your group, you're finding your people.
Either. Like, how do you treat it?
Social media for me is business, and my personal, I think, is reaching out more. Especially now that COVID has lifted, it's getting out and meeting people. You can't meet people necessarily on social media the same way. You still can, but it's not quite the same way as getting out and putting yourself out there. From a business perspective, it is so important to ensure that you're not just a billboard out in the middle of the forest. And I think that's the mistake that a lot of individuals start with. They set up a web page and they're waiting for people to find them. Well, people aren't going to find you. There are a bazillion web pages out there and bazillion businesses out there. You are truly a billboard in the middle of the forest, and you've got to have a way to drive individuals to find you. And so becoming active on Instagram and commenting on other people's work, following other people is okay, but now you're one of 1,000 people who happens to be following someone. I'm not going to know you if you aren't commenting or engaging, as we call it, those individuals. And it needs to come from the heart. That's the other thing that's important. If you are faking it, people can see that pretty quick. So sincerity is so important, and put yourself out there and understand there are people that are not going to like you. not going to follow you, and there are people who are going to follow you. And those are your peeps. You cannot be all to everyone. So you accept those first few, and you engage with those first few, and then they tell a few people, and it's like that commercial for cream rinse. She told 2 friends and they told 2 friends, and the next thing you know, you've got a whole community.
Right. How do you find time to balance it all? Because you have your animals, you have your husband, you have your knitting, you have your knitting groups, you have your business, you have your consulting business. How do you manage?
I think that's probably one of my largest challenges is that. And with age, my maturity has recognized that it is absolutely important to find that balance and make time. So here's the example I share with someone. How long does it take you to have a shower? 20 minutes, half an hour. Do you have a shower every day? Most of us pretty close to every day, at least once every couple of days. We make the time to have a shower. We make the time to brush our teeth. So you make the time to make sure that you appreciate your family, you appreciate your husband, you become efficient in systems. And that's the other thing with my mentorship. I talk about efficiency. There's only so many hours in the day. You are the one and only, and there are a lot of things that need to be done, including cleaning the toilet. So becoming efficient in your systems is imperative, and not dropping one to the demise of another is important. So for me, it is important to spend time with my animals every day. Some days it's 20 minutes. That's it. I get to go out to the barn. I get to sit on the floor, and I get to have the lambs jump on top of me and try to undress me, which is another story, because they like zippers, and they're always doing the zippers up and down. I make sure that the time that I spend with my husband is quality time. I don't, to the best of my ability, don't waste that time. And same with my clients, being efficient. Sometimes they need to dump their bucket, and that's okay, but it's my job to bring us back around to what's the focus of today. What are we talking about today?
Well, another question that I'm often asking people when they go from that hobby, right, something that they enjoy doing, into the business, you sort of have to prioritize, let's say you're knitting, right? So you have to prioritize what will sell. So you losing that artistic freedom, sort of. You're losing that ability to do whatever the heck you want that day. You sort of have to need that 50 hats for your next market appearance, right? How do you deal with that? Like, do you feel like, because, with your dyeing business and with your knitting, like, do you ever feel like you have to do that and it doesn't bring joy anymore because you already have done that and you're on the repeating cycle, versus like experimenting with new dyes or experimenting with new knitting technique, that the business takes joy out of the hobby?
It can. You're absolutely right. And yes, those are the frustrating times, but it's finding the joy that feeds you. So from a business perspective, it doesn't matter what job you have. Even in your podcasting, the interview process, I suspect, is the enjoyable part. But what we don't see is the hours and hours and hours of time that you put into presenting a beautiful podcast for someone to listen to. And there's parts of it that you could just as well throw out the window, I'm sure, loading it up onto YouTube and then not downloading for hours or whatever it happens to be. But it's a part of the process in order to make the goal of the stuff that you really do love. and seeing that final product, meeting the people, making sure that you feed yourself with what it is that brings you joy as a part of the process is the only way you're going to get through that. If I were to tell you, in all honesty, dyeing yarn is 10% of what I do in order to run the business of RavensWood. All the other stuff, some of it I enjoy, some of it I don't, some of it is redundant. But the joy part of coming up with that new colorway, that I need to make sure is a part of the process. Yes, I set it aside at times because I need to pay the bills. But I remind myself, this is why I do this. Meeting people, this is why I do this. Helping people in their joy, this is why I do this. So I need to make sure that I do set that time aside in order to feed and get through the rest of it.
Right. Well, I'm going to put all the information about your companies and how people can find you, how they can schedule that consultation, 1 hour free consultation for themselves if they're thinking about starting a business. And thank you so very much for being my guest today. I learned so much from you.
Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to chat with you. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Good morning. My flock is following me. They're always sure I've got something good for them. Right, Marin? Do I have something good for you? Do I have something good? Hello, Mrs. Bell. How are you?